At the start of 2023, the University of Leeds planted 66,000 trees to create a new woodland for biodiversity, research and teaching. From initial plans in 2021, Gair Wood has had science built into it every step of the way and has brought a whole community together in the process.
Turning Gair Wood into a reality has been a huge team effort. The project is a collaboration between the University of Leeds, the United Bank of Carbon and the White Rose Forest. Within the University of Leeds, the project has not only involved research and academic colleagues, but also members of staff from the operational side of the university, so people from the estates and sustainability services. And without all of these contributions, the project would not have been possible. We also consulted widely with other organisations outside the university, members of the local community and our students.
My role in Gair Wood was as woodland designer, getting the woodland from paper into reality and trees in the ground. I worked very closely with Steve Dennison, and Steve sort of ran all the organisational side, whereas I was doing more of the detailed design work and looking at the what to plant where type decisions. Lots and lots of tiny decisions. Particularly with species, we looked very closely at the national vegetation classifications, and we also got some help from the university's ecologists looking at all the woodlands around to see what was doing well. But the key decider is the soils, and so we dug some soil pits and did some analysis using some of Forest Research's tools. One thing I really thought about in detail is mixing up the levels of light to get biodiversity, and so much about biodiversity is the different zones, and it really boils down to light. And so how dense the trees are, whether it's scrub, whether it's coppice, all that kind of detailed decision making is in the design.
In December 2022, Roger Gair, who was the Secretary of the University for 20 years and who the new woodland is named after, ceremonially planted the first tree.
It's a huge privilege and honour, deeply moving, to be associated in this way with a development which is going to be of such benefit to the local community, to the academic work of the university, and of course, above all, to the environment.
In January and February 2023, the remaining 66,000 trees were planted, and the planned research woodland became a reality.
My role at Gair Wood has been to coordinate the volunteering programme along with my colleague Sam, so we've been organising all the groups of volunteers that have come up here for the sessions throughout the week to make sure we're getting as many people involved as possible, including people from the community, members of staff, students, and anybody generally that's keen in the project and wants to get muddy.
I think it's really exciting that we have so many people from the local community getting involved, because you can really tell when people come on site, everyone gets excited about whatever age they are, wherever they're from, and they're just genuinely excited to be part of a project that they can watch grow over the coming years and decades. This is a thing that you could come back to in 5, 10, 20 years and have a real sense of ownership over and say that you were part of it.
I've been helping organise the volunteer programme to get some of the trees in the ground because the volunteers have been planting the trees that we'll be using for one of our big experiments. And then over the course of the coming years, I'm going to be helping coordinate different researchers as they come onto site and ask different questions. So the planning that we're doing for the experiment is a subset of the overall planning, and we're planting or measuring out 10 by 10 metre grids, and within each of these grids we're going to plant pre-prepared mixes of trees. So some of them will just be monocultures of oak, right the way up to mixes of 12 different species. And that's going to let us ask lots of interesting questions about how species diversity affects various characteristics like the soil, the animals that visit the site, how the trees survive. The easiest way to explain all this is to probably just get out and get some spades in the ground.
This is one of our medium diversity plots. So we have 4 species in here. We have 2 types of oak, a pedunculate oak and a sessile oak. We've got small leaf lime and we've got a sycamore. And what we're going to do is we are going to evenly distribute them across these grids. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to plant one tree, a random tree in each grid. And when we plant them, we're not trying to aim for rows, we're trying to go for a very natural looking planting. So just at a random point within the grid.
We can record the species and the position on this data sheet that we'll be filling out as we go along. And that'll mean that we can digitize this information, and then researchers at the university are going to be able to access the information we collect about these trees over time, so the way the trees are growing, how they survive, the soil around them, and that'll become a resource that can be used by researchers at the university for years and decades to come.
With the planting completed, the next phase of the project was able to begin in earnest. As well as managing the trees to make sure they establish well, the Gair Wood team are conducting research to better understand the effects and opportunities for woodland creation in the UK.
My name's Alana Thornton. I'm a master's student studying biodiversity and conservation, and my project is on faunal diversity on Gair Wood. So I've done some invertebrate surveys using pitfall traps, some butterfly surveys and bird surveys, and I'm looking at the diversity both before and after tree planting. I think it's important to have baseline research from the beginning, because in 10-20 years time, when we're collecting like future research, it would be interesting to see the vast differences between then and now. My master's research will provide really important faunal baseline data for continued research into the future. It should also be able to inform the future management practices. If we find a particular species on here, that means that certain management practices need to be implemented over the next few years. I think that would be great to have been a part of that.
I'm Emily, I'm going into third year of environmental science, and this summer I've been doing a NERC Panorama funded research experience placement at Gair Wood, looking at how local weather conditions have affected tree survival rates. Species have grown really well considering the low temperatures and drought during the growth period. This is really promising for woodland growth throughout the UK, and considering the threat of climate change in the future, this is really important.
I'm Isel Davis. I'm a third year geography student for the University of Leeds, and I'm conducting my data collection for my dissertation in Gair Woods. The trees show so much about the past climate and the present climate. You can tell so much just from a tree core. So I thought it would be really interesting to compare different species and just see how differently do trees respond to the climate and how much of an effect is it having. I chose to conduct my research in Gair Woods due to the variety of species available and the type of climate that these trees are living in. My research will help forest planting and management in the future to guide people on what trees are most resilient to future climate projections.
I'm Dr. Jim Parker. I'm a reader in the Leeds Sustainability Institute at Leeds Beckett University. We have a network of these sensors all around Leeds. Having the sensor installed at Gair Wood is a really good opportunity as part of the microclimate monitoring that we do around the city. One of the main reasons is it's a really good rural reference site, right? So it's right on the edge of the city. It's also an unrivaled opportunity to have some long-term measurements of the microclimate as the landscape changes. Some of the early results just from this June have shown us that sometimes Gair Wood's up to sort of 4 or 5 degrees cooler than the city centre.
All the data that's being collected here at Gair Wood will be kept for long-term collaborative use, but we're also collecting a set of background data that can support individual research projects. So we've got a weather station that is collecting temperature, wind speed, rainfall data, and we've also got a network of 20 or so probes across the site. These probes are collecting information about the temperature just above the surface and within the soil. And they're also recording the soil moisture. We've got these spread across the site, across the different habitats that we're hoping will start to emerge. This will enable us to see how the temperatures at ground level are changing as the trees grow. We've also collected soil samples across these same locations so that we can analyse the contents of that soil, but we can also come back and look at how things like the microbial communities have evolved over time.
The research undertaken at Gair Wood gives us real-time insight into optimum management of the ecosystem, but it is now helping to answer much broader questions surrounding woodland creation.
The site provides a living lab for biodiversity where we can really explore some of the challenges we're going to face around trying to improve nature and improve wildlife, and also understanding the connection between people and the way they engage with those spaces so that they can really invest in outdoor spaces and in nature, but also so that we can look for opportunities to look at where that links with the research. So not only are our academics looking at the big climate challenges that we're going to face, but also on a very local level, the way that we impact on key species in an area, the way that we can better manage that relationship between people and the natural environment.
As we move into Gair Wood's second year and the trees continue to grow over the next few decades, the site is brimming with potential for new discoveries and a thriving community, as well as the hopes of the people who work there.
The thing that interests me most about the Gair Wood project, I think, is the fact that it's going to become a living laboratory. The fact that we can kind of observe a woodland as it's growing in real time and monitor everything you want to monitor about it in terms of species and soil and all that stuff, and then use that data to kind of optimize future woodland creation projects, I think is a really exciting opportunity to be involved.
I really hope that this is going to become an important site for woodland research, where a lot of our colleagues can come and collaborate and ask really interesting questions about what happens when a site like this is planted and developed. I'm also really excited that we're creating a new asset for the community, which is going to allow us to connect a lot of different bits of green space that previously hadn't been connected.
I'm really excited to see how the site develops over the next few years. What we look at now is lots of tiny, tiny trees in their tubes, but eventually we'll come back and this will be a woodland.
I'm excited for Gair Wood as a project because I think it will be a fantastic example of how we can create woodlands in a very positive way with all the science that we already know, and hopefully generate some new science that will help inform woodland creation going forward. But mainly, I'm excited that more people will be able to come and visit a woodland in this part of Leeds.
Once the establishment phase is over, it will be, so in 15 years' time, it will be really interesting to see how that works and what sort of biodiversity gains this area gets. The other thing, obviously, a community resource, and it's just been a fantastic project.